The U.S. immigration system can be confusing, especially when it comes to all the different agencies and which ones do what. But it's important to know how they all work together to keep our country safe and to keep trade and travel moving through our ports of entry. Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, is the agency responsible for protecting our borders. It includes Border Patrol agents who apprehend immigrants between ports of entry and customs officers who detain inadmissibles, including asylum seekers, at ports of entry. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, is responsible for enforcing immigration laws inside the United States. ICE agents conduct raids to arrest immigrants with deportation orders. They also do Homeland Security investigations into smuggling and trafficking crimes. ICE also oversees immigration detention centers and family detention centers. The Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS, is responsible for children who cross the border. Under HHS is the Office of Refugee Resettlement, which pays contractors to house unaccompanied minors. Those children are kept in shelters run by the private contractors with state licenses. The State Department processes immigration visas outside the country. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or CIS, handles immigration visas inside the country. And the Department of Justice handles the immigration courts. The proceedings in immigration courts are not criminal. They are administrative, which is why immigration court records are not public, making it difficult to track immigrants as they are processed through the system. On top of it all, there are about 185 different types of visas in the United States, including temporary non-immigrant visas for tourism and education. Immigrant visas are for people who want to live here permanently. As we say, it's complicated.